Hello. So it's time to get into some content. And let me tell you a little bit about myself so you can get some context. Be talking about personal finance over the next several videos, which seems appropriate since we have Manhattan's financial district here behind me. Years ago, I used to work at Morgan Stanley in wealth management, and I was on a team and we'd manage over $100 million of other people's money, very, very wealthy people. And I enjoyed that. I became a CFA charter holder. If anyone knows what that is, most people don't, but it's a pretty prestigious finance designation. It's very difficult to get. I passed all three levels, and I was very proud of that. But I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I quit that job. And one of the first things I did is I wrote a book. This book right here, actually, Pirates of Financial Freedom, wrote it many years ago. And it's a book that teaches personal finance lessons, over 100 of them, but it does it in the form of a uh, adventure novel. So it's got humor, romance, plot twists, but it teaches along the way. It's the only book of its kind, at least to the level of entertainment. There's a couple other books that are maybe similar, but I think mine is better. Obviously, it won a couple awards, and was actually taught in the classroom at some schools, which I thought was really cool. So I turned this book into an 8-module course called the Family Treasure Chest, and the point of the Family Treasure Chest was and still is that families can watch it together, teenagers with their parents, because even though parents probably should know these concepts, a lot of them don't. And so it's a good interactive way to have some fun. This isn't a boring course or anything like that. And I've sold it before and made some sales, but never really took off. And so it's just kind of sitting here. And I thought, well, why don't I just give it to the world? And if it even help just one person, then it's worth it. And so if you watch this video or future videos and you get a result from it, I'd love for you to reach out or to put it in the comments below because I'd love to celebrate you, and I'd love to know that these things are making a difference, because you don't really know sitting here behind a computer if anybody's even watching the things. So the first topic that I'm gonna put on the back of this video is called How to Have a Millionaire Mindset. Okay. Now, full disclosure, I don't have a net worth of $1 million yet, working on it. But I have made over $1 million in my own business. And I have met, studied, and coached some very successful people. And I also quote sources. So it's not just my opinion, it's people that are very successful, and we can always learn from them. So how to have a millionaire mindset is the first video here in this season one of personal finance, and I hope you get a lot out of it. And please let me know what you think. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the training. Well, welcome to week one, everybody. The title is How to Have a Millionaire Mindset. So I have a very important question for you. Who wants to become a self-made millionaire? All right, make some noise if that's you. All right, perfect, because that's exactly what we're going to cover. In order to do that, you have to have a millionaire mindset, and that is the topic that we're going to cover today. So hopefully you guys are excited as I am. Now, before we get started, you want to make sure that you have the worksheets and a pen, okay? This is called a workshop because you guys are actually going to do some work on your mind today, right? Make it more powerful. Make it start thinking like a millionaire. So you want to make sure you've printed that out. Go ahead and pause the video if you haven't. And if nothing else, if you can't find the worksheet, which is in the course, you should be able to print it out. But otherwise, at least have 2 separate pieces of paper for each person at a minimum. Otherwise, the worksheet and the pen will do great because you'll be taking some notes. Now, before I get into the content, I want to do a little activity, all right? I'm basically going to have a series of questions, and you're going to scale them from 1 to 10 on how much you agree with them, right? So 1, you completely disagree. 10, you 100% agree with the statement, okay? So make sure you have your paper and pencil ready because we're going to get going here. All right, here we go with the first question. You can be really rich and still be a good person, right? If you completely agree with that, put down a 10 for question number 1. If you completely disagree with that, write down a 1, and then obviously any number in between that you want. So you can be really rich and still be a good person. Question 2. You can find millionaire mentors. right? You want a mentor that's a millionaire, you can go out and find one of those. Again, scale 1 to 10, go ahead and write down the number for question 2. Question number 3. You have enough time to make extra money. You have enough time to make extra money. Go ahead and write down your answer for question number 3. Question number 4. You are smart enough to become really rich. You are smart enough to become really rich. Next, it is possible for you to make $1 million next year. It is possible for you to make $1 million next year. Right? How much do you agree with that statement on a scale of 1 to 10? Next, you can overcome any obstacle that gets in your way. You can overcome any obstacle that gets in your way. Question number 7. People like you and trust you and would be happy to buy something from you. Okay. People like you, trust you, and would be happy to buy something from you. Okay. Question 8. You can come from a poor family and still become rich. You can come from a poor family and still become rich. All right, 2 more questions here. Question number 9. When it comes to accomplishing your goals, you will never quit. When it comes to accomplishing your goals, you will never quit. And the last question, you can become a billionaire. It's with a B. You can become a billionaire. How much do you agree with that statement? Okay, so hopefully you've answered all the questions. Now, on the second piece of paper, I want you to write down all the reasons why you cannot become a millionaire. All right? All the reasons that you have in your head. We're going to take a minute here. Just get a pen and a paper on the second sheet here. Write down all the reasons why you cannot become a millionaire. We'll just take 30 seconds or a minute to do that. Go ahead and write down everything you can think of. You may think that, I don't want to put anything in your mind, but go ahead and write down all the reasons why you feel that you cannot become a millionaire. All right, give it a little more time here. I want you to write down everything you can think of. Yeah, we'll do 10 more seconds. Okay, so hopefully you have a decent list there. And let's just write down one more. Come up with one more. Write that down as well. A reason why you feel that you cannot become a millionaire. Okay. Well, I have a little secret to tell you. Yes, I do. You see, the list you have in front of you, the one that you wrote down of all the reasons why you cannot become a millionaire, well, that list is filled with absolutely nothing but lies. Complete lies. They're all lies. All of them. Every single thing that you wrote down on that piece of paper is nothing but a lie. You can become a millionaire. And we're going to show you how and why, and lots of people who have done it before you. All right, you can become a millionaire. You first need to believe that. All right, it's very important. Right, so I want you to stand up. Wherever you are, just stand up. All right. Now I want you to grab that piece of paper that is filled with those lies, those absolute lies that you wrote down on the piece of paper. And I want you to tear it into shreds. I want you to just tear it into a million little pieces. I want you to tear it in half. Then I want you to tear it again. I want you to crumple it up. I want you to throw it on the ground. Then I want you to stomp on it. I want you to stomp on those lies, on those pieces of paper that are completely not true. I want you to just completely destroy it because they are nothing but lies and they are not true. And you are going to show that piece of paper who is boss, right? Your boss, not that piece of paper, not those lies, not those limiting beliefs that you wrote down. This is who's in charge, okay? Now, I want you to do a little activity. I'm going to ask you a simple question, and I want you to answer, yes, I can, okay? So, can you make a lot of money? Let's try that again. As soon as I ask the question, I want you to answer right away in your loudest, most powerful, most confident voice, okay? Can you make a lot of money? All right, that's pretty good, but I think you can do better on the next one. Can you accomplish your dreams? Okay? Say it with even more confidence this time. Regardless of what has happened in your past, can you achieve unbelievable success? Can you become a millionaire? I'm going to ask that one again. Can you become a millionaire? And can you get a whole lot more out of life? And who wants more, right? Everyone wants more. In fact, that's right. Push it to the limit. That's what it takes. You guys are going to push it to the limit every single day of your life from now on. You're going to go after your goals and you're going to achieve them. All right? That's what this course is all about. Making your dreams come true. Okay? So hopefully you guys are excited, right? You're feeling good. All right, now let's actually get into the meat and the potatoes of this, okay? You see, becoming a millionaire, through this course, I'm going to be teaching you a lot about tactics and techniques and the financial concepts you need to know. But none of that stuff is going to work if you don't believe it's going to work, right? You need to have the right mindset. You need to bring the right energy in order to achieve your dreams, okay? So we're going to be doing some activities. We're going to break these limiting beliefs that you might have. We're going to give you an empowering mindset because I can give you the techniques and the tactics, right? I can give you the strategies and the math, but if you don't have the right mindset to go with it, it's not going to work as well, all right? So this course is all about bringing you to your best self, working on the internal before we work on the external, because this is the foundation for everything, right? If you go through this course and you're saying to yourself, oh, well, I can't, these concepts are nice, but it would never work with me, okay? That is completely not true. It can completely work with you, right? So I'm not going to teach you the techniques until you believe that they're going to work, because they can work and they will work, all right? So let's get started here. False limiting beliefs. Let's just address these right now, okay? I'm going to tell you a limiting belief that you may have. Hopefully you don't, but if you do, I'm going to tell you a story of a real person to just completely tell you that these are just complete garbage, right? I'm going to go through a series of limiting beliefs that a lot of people believe, but they're just not true, and I'm going to show you that they're not true. So, the first one, but I'm too young to become successful, okay? And in fact, I really want you to realize, is this something that you believe? And if it is, then you're about to see that it's just not true. So let me tell you about Maddie Bradshaw. Okay, these are all real life people. So basically, here's her story. She was 10 years old. Let me repeat that. She was 10 years old. Okay, and basically, she was looking for some magnets to decorate her locker. Right? She just wanted to have something pretty for her locker. So she did. She made these like snap cap things, which is basically kind of, she glued like a magnet to one of these cap necklace things. Okay. So anyway, she did something real simple. And then she went to her local retail store and she was like, hey, I think these are cute. My friends are asking about them. Could you kind of sell these, for a few days and, so let's see what happens, right? I mean, hey, why not? Well, it turns out they sold out within 2 hours.
okay? If you make something and it sells out within 2 hours, that is a very good sign, all right? Well, basically, it really took off, and over the next 5 years, she brought in over $5 million of sales. She started when she was 10 years old, okay? Now, I don't know if you can tell the background on this picture that's on the screen right now, but that is the set of Shark Tank, okay? So this 15-year-old girl gets onto Shark Tank, all right? I hope you guys like Shark Tank. You should start watching it if you've never seen it. But basically, she closes 3 out of the 5 sharks as an investor into her company, all right? So the idea that you're too young to become successful, you're too young to start, is complete garbage. Complete garbage, okay? All right, next. But I don't come from a wealthy family. A lot of people have this belief that you have to come from wealth in order to become wealthy, and that's completely not true. It is just 100% not true. In fact, a lot of the self-made millionaires and billionaires, if you look at the Forbes list, are completely self-made. They didn't come from money. But let's look at one story. All right. Robert L. Johnson. Okay, he was born in Hickory, Mississippi. He was one of 10 children. Okay, that's a lot of children. His parents were pretty poor, right? His dad worked at a battery factory, and his mom just worked a part-time job, right? They did not have a lot of money, especially with that many kids, as you can imagine. So he learned early on that education was the only way for him to succeed, to kind of break out of this world that he was in. He knew education was the most important thing that he could do. But he knew his family couldn't afford college, right? So what he did is he just got really good grades. He worked really, really hard, and he ended up getting a scholarship to Illinois University. He then got a graduate degree from Princeton's Woodrow Wilson School, which is one of the finest kind of public international affairs schools on the planet. Then he worked in television, and he learned a lot in television, okay? So he got this idea, and he founded BET, right? I think it stood for Black Entertainment Television. But basically, he founded that, right? And just because, he used what he learned in the television industry, he just had a normal job in TV, and then he started this channel. And, several years later, he sold it to Viacom for $3 billion. That's with a B, $3 billion, okay? Right? It doesn't matter what your background is, you can still become successful. And I'll even tell more stories about this, right? But I'm at a huge disadvantage, okay? All right, let's talk about Liz Jackson. You think you have a disadvantage. Fine. She started her company at the age of 25 with a $1,500 grant, right? $1,500, so not a ton of money, but, decent. She has no advanced education. And then she grew this company with only $1,500 into a multi-million-dollar company. She's also won many prestigious awards, and overall, this story is pretty impressive, right? Okay, so she grew a company from nothing to a multi-million-dollar company. Great. Well, here's the part of the story that makes this completely fascinating. A couple months after she started her company, she went blind. She went blind. Okay, she's starting a company, which is already just a huge, huge challenge. Now she's starting a company completely blind right at the beginning. I mean, could you talk about worse timing, right? Okay, I'm going to start this company, and then you go blind. Well, she was able to still build it into a multi-million-dollar company even though she was blind. But here's what's even cooler, all right? When people ask her about her blindness, all right, here's the quote from her. She says, "It's been an advantage for building up the business." Let me say that again. Being blind, it's been an advantage for building up the business because from a PR point of view, people like to write about me. There aren't many blind women in their 30s running companies. So she looks at her biggest weakness and she views it as an advantage. And that's what I want you to do right now with yourself. Think about your biggest weakness and figure out how can you turn it into an advantage. Maybe your weakness is that you have a disability, perhaps, like her. Turn that into an advantage, right? Because people like to see people like to see success stories. They like rags to riches stories. They like people who have overcome incredible odds. So if you feel that you are at a disadvantage right now, use that to your advantage. Use that to drive you. Use that to motivate you. Use it to get press. Use it to close sales, right? People want to help people that are at a disadvantage. That's kind of the American way. So think about your biggest disadvantage and think about how you can turn that into a strength. Turn it into an advantage. There's lots of ways to do it. You just have to be creative. And if you can't figure it out, ask other people. They can help brainstorm ways for you to do that. All right? But I don't have supportive friends and family, right? Maybe that's your situation. Maybe you believe that. But you can still become successful, even if that's true. All right. Let's look at Oprah. Okay, Oprah, right? Very famous, very rich. She was born in rural Mississippi, right? Nowhere fancy. She was an unwed teenage mother. Okay. She grew up in poverty. She was physically abused by her own family. She was pregnant at 14 and suffered a miscarriage, okay? Just all these things just stacked against her, like incredible odds that she had to overcome. And now guess what? She's been called the most influential woman in America. You know? I mean, your background, what's happened to you, it doesn't matter. You can still become successful. Wildly successful, okay? But I'm not a good student in school, right? Maybe you're not, all right? But that doesn't mean you can't become successful, all right? But first, I would advise you to become better at school because it's going to give you a lot of other advantages. But, this is not a deal breaker for you in terms of what you can achieve. So let's look at John Paul Dioria, okay? Very cool guy. Here's his story. He grew up in a foster home, all right? He was hanging out with gang members in East LA when he was growing up, when he was going to school. He was not on a good path. In fact, he had a high school math teacher, and he was talking to his high school math teacher, and the teacher directly said to him that he would never amount to anything in life. Right now, think if you're a student and there's a teacher, obviously teacher has some authority, and most students respect the teacher in general, hopefully, and that's teacher tells you that you're never going to amount to anything in life. Right? You can do, and this is going to happen many times in life, right? People are going to say things like that to you. Now you have two choices. You can either believe it and give up and say they're right, or you can use it to motivate you to prove them wrong. And that's exactly what he did. He said, I'm going to show you, right? He used that as the defining moment of his life to give him the motivation to fight through the struggle to become successful. Now, it wasn't an easy path, okay? This was not an instant kind of thing, right? He had to work many years. But that kept him motivated. So, after school, he became homeless, actually, all right? He had to collect bottles just to, get enough money to survive. In fact, he had to use the local shower near the beach in order to shower because he didn't have a place to live. But then he got into the hair care industry, and he got a $700 loan. He was able to scrounge that up to start a business, and he started selling shampoo, and he did it door to door. He sold the shampoo door to door. Well, that company turned into Paul Mitchell, huge company. Maybe you've heard of it. He then used that money to start this alcohol company called Patron, very famous tequila, right? So he's now a billionaire with a B, a billionaire, a guy who was homeless and hung out with, in a gang-infested neighborhood whose teacher said he would never amount to anything, who was bad at school, is now a billionaire, okay? If he can do it, you can do it as well. Okay, but I'm not from the right neighborhood. Maybe you feel, I'm not from the right neighborhood. Let's look at this guy. Maybe you've heard of him? Seen him in a movie or two, perhaps? Leo? Well, he grew up very poor in LA, all right? Every day he walked home from school, he was offered to smoke crack. People were shooting heroin right in front of him, right? He never, as far as I know, got into any of that stuff, but that was the environment that he was in. He was in a very bad neighborhood. But guess what? He's grown up to be Leonardo DiCaprio, all right? I mean, seriously, who wouldn't want to be him? Or at least I think it'd be cool to be him for at least a few days. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you're not from the best neighborhood right now. You can still become successful. But people don't like my ideas, right? Maybe I have some brilliant ideas and, people don't like them. Maybe you think that that's going to prevent you from becoming successful. Well, it won't, okay? Now, obviously, you need a good idea, right? And you're going to need to refine it over time. But Fred Smith, okay? He basically, back in college, he wrote an economics term paper on the need for reliable overnight delivery in a kind of computerized information age, right? That's what his term paper was about. And he was at Yale, so, there was this Yale professor, and obviously very, very intelligent, right? Yale people are very smart. And what he said to Fred was that the concept is interesting and well-formed, But in order to earn better than a C, the idea must be feasible, right? He thought, this idea is kind of cool, but it's infeasible. You're not going to be able to do it. I'll probably give you a C on the paper. Okay, so not a very ringing endorsement, right? Well, several years later, basically through innovative thinking and a lot of charisma and just sheer determination, he built FedEx. Right? I'm sure you guys have heard of FedEx. It's now worth, he's worth probably $5 billion again. And, he didn't let that one person stop him from his vision, right? If you have a vision that you truly believe in, a lot of times people are going to tell you no. They're going to be like, no, that's a dumb idea. A lot of the most revolutionary things in history, people said that that's a dumb idea at the beginning, okay? But the entrepreneur, the innovator, the inventor, whoever it was, they just saw it with such clarity, and they just believed in it so much that they ignored the naysayers and they built it anyway. And then they became very, very successful. But I was bullied in school, right? This is a big issue right now. Maybe you're experienced being bullied right now. Maybe in the past. Maybe you think that because you were bullied, you can't become successful. Garbage, right? Here's Elon Musk. My favorite entrepreneur right now. I think I just have so much respect for him. Out of everybody out there, he's kind of my guy. And the reason for that is because he's a billionaire, right? He's very successful. But he has these mission-based companies, right? So he believes in reducing the emissions and pollution from cars, etc. So he has Tesla, right? The sexy car company that's electric, that's all electric cars. He believes in saving humanity from an uncertain future. If an asteroid hits us or we succumb to nuclear war or whatever, right? He needs humanity to colonize Mars. So he started a company to do that. I mean, how audacious, how amazing, right? So the things that he's working on is just so cool. He's got these he wants to build tunnels underground so that you can transport cars faster and avoid traffic, right? I have a lot of ideas that I think can be revolutionary like him, and I just really admire of what he's doing. He's not doing it just for the money, right? He's not doing it just for the money. Sure, does he have a lot of money? Of course he does, but that's not what's kind of driving him. It's very mission based. Anyway, for him, he was bullied in school when he was younger. His dad said that he had always been an introvert thinker. Okay, he said you'd more likely find him in the library than on the sports field. Okay, he was the youngest and the smallest guy in his school, so he was easy to pick on, right? He was picked on all the time, in fact. He was bullied throughout his childhood. In fact, one time, a group of boys threw him down the stairs. They literally threw him down the stairs. They beat him up until he blacked out. In fact, he had to go to the hospital because of this. Okay? And now he's Elon Musk, right? Your past doesn't matter. Your past doesn't matter. You can still become successful. But I'm too old, right? How many of you are thinking this? Maybe there's some parents or grandparents in the room. It's too late for me. I missed my chance. I'm too old. Okay. Well, that's completely not true either. Let's look at Colonel Sanders, right? So Colonel Sanders, he was 65 and basically broke, right? He was living off the Social Security checks, and he was getting about $105 back in the day on a Social Security check. And he was like, no, there's more to life than this. Okay. I do not accept this to live the rest of my life living on Social Security. He was 65, okay? He decided there was more to life, and so he started to franchise his chicken recipe, right? At 65, right? It was a lot of work, which we'll touch on later, but he died a multimillionaire. This guy at 65 was basically broke, died a multimillionaire, and he didn't even start until he was 65. So if you're thinking you're too old, you're not, okay? There are 90-year-olds that are still doing marathons, and they started in their 70s. So don't tell me that you're too old to do anything, because that's a limiting belief. There are just so many stories like this, okay? Barbara Corcoran, she turned a $1,000 loan into a $2 billion real estate empire, right? Don Juan Chang, he moved to America from Korea, and he had to work 3 jobs. He was working as a janitor, a gas station attendant, and a coffee shop guy. But he had this dream for a clothing company, which he eventually founded, called Forever 21, now worth $5 billion. Okay? Harold Simmons, he literally grew up in a shack with no plumbing or electricity. He literally had no plumbing or electricity. He's now worth $40 billion. Wayne Huizinga, he had an abusive father. Never had much money growing up. He was driving a truck and pumping gas as a teenager just to make some extra money. He went on to start 3 Fortune 500 companies, right? President Woodrow Wilson couldn't read until the age of 12. Lots of people have had dyslexia, right? So Charles Schwab, Jay Leno, Magic Johnson, billionaire Richard Branson, Steven Spielberg, Tommy Hilfiger, Henry Ford, Ted Turner, Steve Jobs, like all these people had some degree of dyslexia, and they became very, very successful. Eric Weinemeyer, he was blind, okay? And he climbed Mount Everest. If a blind person can climb Mount Everest, you can accomplish whatever goal you have, all right? Basically, the truth is, whatever challenge or obstacle you have had, someone else has had a bigger one, and they overcame it, right? So look to those people as inspiration. Doesn't matter what your challenge is or has been or you think will be, someone else has already overcome it, and you can too, all right? So now we're going to do a little activity, all right? Here's what I want you to do. Everyone take a seat if you're not seated already. And what I want you to do is we're going to say some possible limiting beliefs that you may have, and we're going to break them. We're going to break those limiting beliefs right now, okay? So what I want you to do, I want you to repeat the way that I say it, but first, sit down, and I want you to kind of lean forward in a depressed kind of body language way, right? So, you're leaning forward, you want to frown, you want to put your head down, maybe you kind of touch your neck a little bit, which is a sign of insecurity. Think these negative thoughts, right? So kind of get in that kind of a state. So you're kind of frumpy, right? And now I want you to repeat what I say in the way that I say it, okay? Then I don't have enough time. Okay, so after I say it, I want you to repeat it. So we'll try it again, all right? Now say it in the way that I say it. Then I don't have enough time. Okay, great. Now I want you to stand up, right? I want you to have this very confident body language. I want to put your fist out in front of you in a powerful pose, okay? And I want you to repeat what I say in the way that I say it. I'll make the time. All right? I want you to repeat that. We'll try one more time. I'll make the time. Okay, great. I want you to sit down. Okay? Now, I want you to say, but I don't have enough money. I want you to stand up in that powerful pose again. I want you to say in a confident way, I'll get the money. Great. I want you to sit down. I want you to say, I'll do it later. Okay, stand up. I want you to say, I'll do it now. Next. But I can't become a millionaire. Now I want you to say, I'll become a billionaire. Okay, now sit back down. I want you to say, but I can't do it. Now I want you to repeat in your most powerful voice, yes I can, yes I can, yes I can. Great, now give yourself a round of applause. Okay? Being able to break these limiting beliefs is so important, okay? You guys can have a seat. Whenever you find yourself in this kind of state, which is going to happen in the near term, okay? When you find yourself kind of slumped over, thinking these negative thoughts, you can break that right away, right? Stand up, put yourself in a powerful, confident position, and say the opposite of whatever it is what you're thinking. Say that powerful belief. May then put on some upbeat music, and I think that's really going to be able to change your state very, very fast, like within seconds, okay? So that's how you can start to get in the pattern of breaking these limiting beliefs, because that's all it is a pattern, right? You say these same things to yourself over and over and over, and it's almost like you're hypnotizing yourself to believing that it's true. But it's not true, okay? You just repeat it to yourself all the time, so your brain thinks it's true, but it's not, right? We showed lots of stories where it's not true. So whenever you start to get into that kind of a pattern, now you know how to break it, all right? So I think this is a great time to share. What are some limiting beliefs that you've had? What are some new beliefs that you're going to start believing? All right, we're going to put 3 minutes here, and just go ahead. This is time to share. Okay, so build some bonds with the people around you. Go ahead and share what you've learned so far and what action you're going to take moving forward. Maybe you guys can help each other, right? If there's a limiting belief that you're having trouble getting over, someone else can help you find a new belief to replace that with, right? Because it's not just about breaking limiting beliefs, you want to replace it with something more empowering. Or what were some of the favorite new beliefs that we mentioned that you can incorporate into your life? Just have a discussion. Go ahead and wrap up here. All right, perfect. Now, obviously, if you're having a great conversation, feel free to pause the video so you can continue it. But otherwise, we're going to move on to the next lesson here. Powerful self-talk. Isn't that a cool picture? That's how you need to start thinking about yourself, right? Okay, so would you like to know the secret to success? Make some noise if you'd like to know the secret to success. All right. Well, Earl Nightingale, right? He has a pretty interesting story. He spent 20 years studying success, right? He studied the greatest philosophers in all of history. He interviewed some of the most successful people of his generation. And basically he came down to a simple idea that is the secret to success and failure. This is also the secret to failure. So you're going to get 2 in 1 here, which is pretty exciting. All right. So drum roll, please. Go ahead and make some noise, all right? Give me some drum rolls. The secret to success is you become what you think about. You become what you think about. So let's think about that. If you're the type of person that thinks about, let's say you're always thinking about how things always go wrong in your life and how you're always sick or how you never have enough money and how everyone else gets promoted and you never get promoted. How, that's what you focus on, right? That is what you always think about. And lo and behold, those types of things happen. Or maybe you're thinking, oh, I never get good grades in school, or, oh, everyone has more fun than I do, or, oh, I never get picked for the whatever team, or whatever. This is what you focus on, and this is what you believe, and that's what you always think about. And lo and behold, that's what you become. Okay? But let's look at the opposite way. Let's look at very successful people and what they think about. What does a really successful person think about? Well, they think about, how am I going to make my next $1 billion? How can I change the world? Who do I need to connect with that can help me reach my goal a lot faster? How should I spend my time today to maximize my life? How can I, whatever, like those types of, that is what they think about. Those are the types of things that they are always asking themselves that they're learning about. What book should I read next in order to rapidly accelerate my business growth or my personal growth, or how can I, in my relationship, how can I, make my relationships more amazing, or how can I improve my body? How can I be healthier? Like, if those are the things that they're always thinking about and what they're focusing on, they become those things. right? I mean, how many successful people have you heard, their secret to success is that they just never gave up. It was just persistence. That's the only thing they thought about every single day for years at a time. And eventually it happened, right? Because that's what they think about. So that's his secret to success and to failure, which I think is very interesting. Here's a great quote I came across. Be careful how you talk to yourself because you are listening. Be careful how you talk to yourself because you are listening. All right. You need to monitor how you talk to yourself. Right. What you say to yourself determines your destiny. So what do you say to yourself? All right. Do you say the following things? Bad things always happen to me. I'll never be rich. It's no use. Nothing will ever change. I'm not good enough. I never have enough money. This isn't going to work. Do you say those kinds of things to yourself over and over and over again? Well, here's some advice to you. Stop. Stop saying those things. They are not helping you. In fact, they are hurting you. Just stop saying those things. Okay? You're hypnotizing yourself into believing that those things are true. And as I've already shown from countless stories, none of those things are true. Okay? You need to improve your self-talk. Stop telling yourself things you don't want and start telling yourself the things you do want. It's a very simple concept, but it's very, very powerful. Okay? What are the negative things you say to yourself over and over again? Think about them. This is a real question. I want you to think about the answer. What are the negative things you say to yourself over and over again? Can you come up with a list in your mind? Okay. What can you say to replace them with, right? What is something else, right? Take the thing and then probably just say the opposite is probably good enough, right? So, can you change your negative self-talk into empowering, dominating, and unstoppable self-talk? High five your neighbor and say, yes, I can. Go ahead, high five your neighbor and say, yes, I can. Perfect. So now what I want you to do is we're actually going to take a minute and you're going to write down on the worksheet. So on the worksheet, there's a section for this. You're going to write down what your old thoughts are and now what you're going to replace them with. Okay? So I think this will be a great exercise for you. So I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and do that. Write it down on the worksheet. What are your new beliefs going to be? What are you going to say to yourself now? All right, awesome. Isn't that a cool remix? I really like that Rocky remix because Rocky is, that's such a powerful song with a powerful story, and I like this kind of more upbeat version of it. Okay, next. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Right, so T. Harv Eker, he wrote this book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and basically he came up with 17 what he calls wealth files. Right, so it's 17 kind of principles. He's a multimillionaire himself. He's helped create millionaires. He's interviewed lots of millionaires, etc. Basically, there's kind of 17 characteristics of how millionaires think versus how poor people think. Okay, and he's not making a judgment that rich is better than poor or whatever. It's just it's just how they think differently, right? So I picked a few of them. I'm not going to cover all of them. It's a good book if you want to go check it out. But I'm going to cover some of the more important ones that I came across. So 1, rich people believe I create my life. Poor people believe life happens to me. You see, if you rich people, they say, I'm in control of my destiny, whereas poor people say, oh, woe is me, bad things always happen to me. They don't take responsibility for their life. They just blame other people. Well, it's not my fault I'm not rich because so-and-so did that. Well, it's not my fault that I can't start a business because the government did this or the economy did that. Or they're always just blaming. They never take any responsibility. You need to take responsibility for your life, right? Bad things are going to happen to you. That's just life, okay? So how can you get over that, or how can you fix it, or how can you use that to your advantage, right? Sometimes bad things happen to you for a good reason. But if you don't realize that, or if you don't look at it that way, but basically you need to take responsibility for your own life. You create your life, right? Next. Rich people are committed to being rich. Poor people want to be rich. So, big difference here, right? Rich people, in their mind, they're going to be rich no matter what. This is not a want. It's not a, oh, that'd be nice. It's a have to, right? I am going to become it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Poor people, they're like, oh yeah, I want to be rich someday. It'd be nice if I was, right? It's very, there's no energy there. They're not committed to it. They don't take any action for it. It's just like, well, if it happens someday, that'd be cool. That's not going to work, right? You have to be committed to it. Rich people focus on opportunities. Poor people focus on obstacles, right? So how many obstacles are in your way to becoming a millionaire? Lots, right? There's a lot of obstacles. And if that's the only thing you focus on, well, yeah, you're going to become depressed and be like, well, this is never going to work, right? Well, all these obstacles that are in my way. Right? You need to stop focusing on the obstacles and stop focusing on the opportunities. Like, okay, well, what's the easiest way for me to become a millionaire? Wouldn't that be a better question to ask yourself? What's the easiest way for me to do it? Right? There's lots of hard ways to do it, and there's really hard ways, but maybe you have certain advantages, maybe you know certain people, maybe you have a certain idea. What's the easiest way for you to become a millionaire? And then once what are the opportunities that are right there in front of you? Everyone has some low-hanging fruit that they just haven't realized. You need to start paying attention and looking for the opportunities, because if you're not looking for the opportunities, you're not going to see them, right? How many stimuli, just look around the room that you're in right now. There's probably 1,000 things you can focus on, right? But your brain filters out based on what you tell it to focus out, right? So a lot of you get all this stimuli and all these things are happening to you. You basically block out and ignore the good things and you just focus on all the negative things. Well, I mean, here's the truth. Both good things and bad things, both opportunities and obstacles happen to everyone every single day. The rich people and the successful people just focus on the good stuff. Because why focus on the bad stuff, right? Let's focus on the good stuff. Let's focus on the good things. If an obstacle comes out, let's focus on a way to overcome it. That's kind of the way that you want to start thinking. Next, rich people admire other rich and successful people. Poor people resent rich and successful people. So do you see someone driving with the fancy car, the neighbor with the better house, and do you kind of feel resentful? Are you jealous? Do you not like them? Do you hope that they fail? If that's kind of how you feel, that is a very poor mindset. You want to be able to, and I'm not saying all rich people are good, right? There are scumbags out there who are very wealthy. But in general, a lot of rich people, they give to charity, they work hard for their money, right? In general, so I'd say 90% of them are good, pretty good people. So you want to kind of think about admiring their success and emulate it. How about that? Why not take them to coffee and say, hey man, I'd love some advice from you. Can you give me some advice? Next, rich people associate with positive, successful people. Poor people associate with negative or unsuccessful people. So there's this quote that's like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Do you hang around all poor people all day, every day? Well, chances are you're probably poor. Do you hang around rich people every day? Well, over time, those tendencies and their habits are going to rub off onto you, so you'll become rich eventually too. So I'm not saying that you need to stop hanging out with poor and unsuccessful people, but maybe you spend less time with them and start spending more time with more successful people. And if you don't know any successful people, go out there and find them, right? I never said that becoming rich was going to be easy, all right? I never said that. It's going to be hard work. And so here's your first step. Go find some rich people. Right? Knock on doors if you have to. call people on the telephone randomly, like whatever it takes, right? If you are committed to finding wealthy people to be your mentor, and maybe you have to ask 20 people before somebody says yes. All right, we're going to talk about failure later on. Right? It's probably not going to happen in your first phone call. How committed are you to it? That's the question. Next, rich people are willing to promote themselves and their value. Poor people think negatively about sales and promotion, right? If you want to become rich, especially if you want to become an entrepreneur, sales and marketing is the most important skill you can have. And I used to be in denial about that, right? I thought, oh, sales and marketing, that's whatever, that's not important. But it is important, okay? You need to be willing to tell other people, your value, about why they should buy from you, why your product is better, why you're more qualified for the job. You need to be able to sell yourself and your product, okay? Sales is not a bad thing. It's how you become wealthy a lot of the time. Rich people act in spite of fear. Poor people let fear stop them. Okay, do you think that rich people don't ever get afraid? Do you think they don't have any doubts? Of course they do. They just do it anyway. Okay? They take action. Poor people don't take action, right? They just have these limiting beliefs and whatever. Rich people constantly learn and grow. Poor people think they already know. Okay? I think I read this statistic that the average CEO reads 60 books a year. How many books do you read a year? Are you constantly learning and growing? One of my favorite things is to listen to audiobooks, right? I try to listen to an audiobook, one every other week or so. I'm always learning I read different business books and psychology books and sales books and biographies. I love reading billionaire biographies, right? Because you read these stories about how they become a billionaire and it's like, they're not that special. I mean, if you want to be honest, right? They got lucky a little bit. They worked hard and, it's nothing that you can't do, honestly. Like, read one of their stories and it's like, okay, well, I kind of see how they did this. I guess I could see where that could happen. It's not like they did anything superhuman most of the time. So, yeah. If you think that, I already know everything I need to know, and you're not a millionaire, then clearly there's stuff that you don't know. So you always want to be learning. So the question is, can you start thinking like a millionaire? High five your neighbor and say, yes, I can. All right, let's do it. So perfect. Hopefully you wrote down some new ways of thinking for yourself so you can think more like a millionaire, and you wrote them down on the worksheet, which is fantastic. All right, we're going to do a little activity here. All right, I don't know if you guys have heard of power poses or not, but basically there is a famous Harvard study done. There was a famous TED Talk done on it. And basically what it says, if you stand a certain way for 2 minutes, several positive things happen. First, you get increased testosterone by 20%, and you decrease your cortisol levels by 25%, according to the scientific study. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means, here are the results, you get lower stress and more confidence. I mean, who here wants lower stress and more confidence? Pretty much everybody, right? So go ahead and stand up. And what I want you to do is I want you to stand kind of like this, right? So your feet are about shoulder width apart. Your hands are on your hips and kind of stick out your chest confidently, right? So I have a question. Who else stands like this? Go ahead and shout out a couple names. Who else kind of stands like this? All right, perfect. So you guys can have a seat. You can't create success and wealth in the world before you believe it and you see it in your own mind's eye first, right? They talk about visualization and all these types of things. It really does make a difference, right? Because you're going to kind of program your brain of what to look for, right? So if you're always telling it, why do bad things always happen to me? Your brain's going to be like, okay, well, I'll just keep an eye out for all the bad things and let you know when I see them. But if you're saying, hey, brain, I want to become a millionaire, show me all the opportunities, where you see there's an opportunity, the brain's going to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm filtering out all this information, so I'm just going to make sure that I alert you when I see an opportunity that could help you become a millionaire, right? Your brain is your servant, right? If you're telling it what you want, it's going to start filtering out the information that you want it to, basically. All right, next, changing your mood and behavior. So, how to change your mood instantly. Who would like that? Let's say you're not in the best mood. Change it instantly so you can feel powerful and dominant and ready to tackle the world. First, change what you're focusing on. If you're in a bad mood, more than likely you're focusing on a bad or negative or sad thought. Well, change your thought. Change what you're focusing on. Change it to something like, what you just visualized with your Superman exercise. Focus on that. That'll get you more excited. Next, don't focus what went wrong in the past, okay? You want to focus on what will go right in the future, right? Stop worrying about the past. The past is done. You can't change it, okay? What are you going to do moving forward? That's what's important, okay? You can complain about the past all you want. You can blame other people. You can blame all day long, but that's not going to make you rich. You want to become rich? You're going to focus on, all right, where am I headed? How am I going to get there? And what action do I need to take to get there? That's what you need to focus on. Again, visualizing your success, whatever success is for you. See it in your mind first. You have to believe you can do it. Because if you don't believe you can do it, it's probably not going to work out very well for you. Change your body language, right? So don't be slumped forward with your head down and a frown on your face, right? Do the power pose we just did. Do that for 2 minutes. You're going to feel better. Put that upbeat music on, right? Move around. Science has shown that when you move, like exercise or take a jog, or do you ever notice how you feel better about yourself, right? So a good way to, let's change the title of this slide to how to feel depressed instantly. How would you do it? Well, you would sit in a chair, right? You'd lean forward. You'd think about depressing thoughts. You'd put on some sad music. And you just focus on that, and you'd keep doing it until you finally became sad, right? Well, if you want to feel great about yourself, just do the opposite, right? Move around, jump around, have fun, focus on the positive things, right? It's not that complicated. Listening to upbeat music will change your mood, right? So, and another thing that you can do is, we all have this answer of, what do you do, right? If you go to a networking event or you meet someone new, they often ask you, what do you do? And we give our standard boring answer or whatever. I want you to think about it a little differently, okay? So what's a different answer that you could, maybe don't say this out loud, but what's something that you could answer in your mind when someone asks you, what do you do? So let's kind of put this all together. Let's do a little activity here. Let me think of what we could do here. I have an idea. How about You're winners, right? Hopefully you're moving around. You're focused on positive things about how you're a winner. Who feels like they're in a better mood right now? What a crazy concept, right? That's how you can change it. That's how you can change it so fast. Okay, now you've got your mood change. You got to change your behavior, okay? So, very simple concept here, pain and pleasure. All right, this is what drives most humans, pretty much all humans. So let's say there's something that you know you should be doing, but you're not doing it. Okay, whether it's starting a business or going to the gym or whatever it is, right? You should be doing something, but you're not. The only reason you're not doing it is because you associate more pain than pleasure to doing it. Let me say that again. If you know you should be doing something but you're not, you are associating more pain than pleasure to actually doing that activity. So what do? Well, you start associating pleasure to doing the activity and pain to not doing the activity, right? So a simple way you can do that is, what happens if I don't do this activity, right? What happens if I don't take control of my finances? What happens if I don't start thinking more positively about my future? What if I don't change that behavior? What's going to happen? What if I don't change it for the next month? What if I don't change it for the next year? What if I don't change it for the next 5 years? What if I don't change that behavior or that limiting belief for the next 10 years? What if I don't change it for 20 years? What if I don't change for 20 years? What opportunities am I going to miss out on? What relationships am I not going to have? What are my finances going to look like? What if you don't change anything for the next 25 years? What if you're in the exact same place that you are right now 30 years from now? Would you be happy with that? Talk about pain, right? That's how you get pain to start associating with you not taking action, with you not changing your behavior, with you not fulfilling your destiny. And start associating pleasure with taking these activities, right? Don't think about the activity itself. Think about the result down the road, right? Think about that vacation you're going to be able to take with your family, or think about that dream job you're going to get, or the physique you're going to have, or whatever it is. Don't focus on the little things of how to get there. Focus on the end goal and all the pleasure that you'll receive once you achieve that. Change the association. Right? So a lot of you have an association of pain and negativity to the thought of learning personal finance. Okay? I'm hopefully getting you to change that association, that learning about personal finance can actually be somewhat entertaining and powerful and engaging. Okay? So you need to change that association in order for you to change your behavior. Right? Finance can be exciting and fun. It can be, right? As long as you believe that, and hopefully I can deliver on that, you're going to have a great 8 weeks together, all right? Give yourself a new title, all right? So let's say that you want to start a business and you have to do cold calling. Everyone hates cold calling, right? That's actually a limiting belief, right? There's actually some people who really enjoy cold calling, right? So not everyone. Anytime you say the words like that, those absolute terms, so like always, never, everybody. If you're the type of person that uses those words a lot, you might be poor. I'm sorry, but there's no such thing as always and never and everybody, right? There's exceptions to every rule, and rich people realize that, right? Because it's too easy to just get sucked into that belief, like, oh well, everybody, nobody works that hard to start a business, or whatever thing you want to put in your mind, right? It's just not true. So stop using those terms. Those absolute terms that include everyone or always or never. But anyway, back to give yourself a new title. Let's say that, let's say you were going to do cold calling, right? And you're just like, well, I have to go cold call now. Is that going to inspire you to really be excited about that? No, of course not. So you need to, you associate more pain than pleasure to it. So start associating pleasure to the cold calling by, you're saving up for that gorgeous house, right? Or that wonderful car that you want, or whatever it is that your goals are. And start associating pleasure to if I cold call, I'll get this great thing. And if I don't cold call, then I'll be stuck in this little apartment for the rest of my life. Do you see how you change the association? But in terms of giving yourself a new title, rather than calling yourself a cold caller, why don't you call yourself a treasure hunter? Right? Call yourself a treasure hunter, right? Cold calling is basically dialing for dollars or searching for buried treasure, right? Somebody out there wants to buy your thing. You just have to go find it. So if you change the title of yourself, now all of a sudden it becomes like a game, right? Make that thing you don't like doing into a game, and now it's more fun. Take action. You can think about these things, but you can only change your behavior if you actually take action. Okay? Now I know the thought. I just know it. It's like, okay, what if I take action? What if I try something and I fail? What if I fail? I know some of you are thinking that. Well, I'm glad you brought up failure. Let's talk about failure. All right? Let's talk about failure. First of all, failure is okay. So take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Failure is okay. Do not fear failure. Just don't be afraid of it, okay? It's going to be okay, right? Here's the thing. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. You can't. I mean, that's just insane. Well, I mean, you're going to try new things, and guess what? You're not going to succeed every time. In fact, the people who succeed the most are the people who failed the most. I can't tell you how many interviews of multimillionaires that I've heard, and they're like, what's your secret to success? And their answer is basically like, I just failed more than other people, right? I just tried all these things, nothing worked, until eventually something worked, and I kept doing it, right? You just keep trying things, and you try and fail, and you try and fail. The only way you can truly fail in life is when you give up and you quit. Otherwise, you're just on your journey to success. Well, I failed 100 times, but it's okay. I'm still on the journey towards success, right? You haven't failed yet. You just found some things that didn't work. So let's look at Jay-Z. Very successful guy. But here's the thing. When he got started, he got rejected by every major record label in the country. In the entire country. Jay-Z rejected by every record label in the country. In fact, he never succeeded. He never got that record deal. So what did he do? He started his own label. And now he's Jay-Z. Okay? Let's look at J.K. Rowling. When she started writing Harry Potter, she was jobless, penniless, living on welfare. Okay? In fact, she fell into a deep depression, and she even admits that she considered suicide. Luckily, she didn't, right? But she was very, very depressed, very, very poor. So that's kind of when she got started kind of writing this book. But then she got this great idea for the book. It came to her in kind of like one train ride. And she finally finished the first Harry Potter book. And she was, very excited about it, thought it was a great story. She went to all 12 major publishers, and all 12 of them rejected her. They literally rejected Harry Potter. They said, nope, not going to be a success. Nope, sorry. Next. Okay, yeah. So now, obviously, she eventually found a publisher, not one of the major ones, right? Just a small publisher, and he was like, okay, well, I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll go ahead and run 500 copies. That's 500 copies of Harry Potter. Like, okay, we'll give it a shot. We'll print 500 books and see if it does anything. Obviously, those 500 sold out, and now J.K. Rowling has had incredible success, and she is richer than the Queen of England. She is richer than the Queen of England, starting from complete failure. Okay? So don't fear failure. Next, Howard Schultz. All right, Howard Schultz, he grew up in the projects of Brooklyn. All right, this is didn't come from a wealthy family. But then he visited Italy, and he had this grand vision for a new kind of coffee experience. All right? So when he was just getting started, he wanted to open his first store, but he got rejected by 217 investors who didn't like his idea for Starbucks. Right? He went to them like, hey, I got this new idea for a coffee shop. I'm going to call it Starbucks. I think it's going to be great. 217 investors like, nope, thanks. We don't want to invest in that. That's not a winning idea. Okay. Starbucks is now worth $78 billion. So yeah, he failed 217 times trying to get investors, but I think he's doing okay now. Walt Disney. Let's look at Walt Disney. He was fired when he was younger from a Missouri newspaper, right when he was just getting started, for not being creative enough. Walt Disney, fired for not being creative enough. Okay. His early venture called Laugh-O-Gram Studios went bankrupt, actually. I mean, imagine this. Walt Disney, one of his first ventures, went bankrupt. That's pretty much a failure, right? There's no denying that bankruptcy is failure, right? Then he had this little idea for this thing called, his Disney theme park. Okay. So he went to 302 banks. They all rejected him. 302 banks in a row until he finally got one to say yes. Can you imagine going to 302 banks? But this is how successful people think, right? Most of you would give up after three no's, right? Not 300 no's. But that is what the successful people, they just see their vision, they just believe in it, and they're just going to keep doing it and 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 keep doing it until they succeed. And they wonder, and then people are like, wow, how did you become successful? Well, that was their only option. Success was their only option. Okay? Next, Colonel Sanders. What a guy. All right, started at 65. All right? Not exactly a young chicken. No pun intended. But yeah, so he went around and he tried to sell his franchising recipe, right, at 65 or around that age. And let's just say he had a tough time. No one wanted to pay for his secret recipe, right? In fact, he heard no. Take a guess how many times he heard no. 1,009 people told him no before he heard his first yes. Imagine you're a 65-year-old man that's poor with this dream. Would you be willing to hear 1,009 no's, or would you just say, well, this isn't going to work after like 10 no's? That's sometimes what it takes. So don't fear failure. All these people, I can give you more and more countless stories about people who failed and failed and failed, and now they're millionaires and billionaires. But don't fear failure, okay? Don't fear failure. Michael Jordan. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Okay? That's what Michael Jordan said. Mark Twain. Courage is not the lack of fear. It is acting in spite of it. Okay? It's a great quote. Right? So yeah, don't fear failure. Okay? Here's something that I say. Don't fear failure. Fear regret. That's what I fear. Okay? 10 years go by. What are you going to regret that you didn't do today, 5, 10 years from now? Because you can't get that time back, right? What are you going to regret not doing? That's what I fear. I don't fear failure because failure is temporary. Regret is forever. Failure is temporary. Regret is forever. Yeah. So, can you start changing your behavior so you can get amazing results out of life? You know what to do. High five your neighbor and say, yes, I can. And let's come up with ways. What new behaviors are you going to start doing? Go ahead and write it down on your worksheet. What are you going to do? Perfect. So hopefully you have some new behaviors that you're going to start doing, and that's going to make all the difference. So let's go ahead and share, what just out of anything that's been covered so far, what have you learned? What's been your favorite lesson? What are you going to do differently now? Let's just go ahead and take some time and go ahead, share with others, those things. Okay, so hopefully you guys have got some good lessons so far. You're going to take some new actions. You're going to create a new life for yourself. And that's fantastic. All right, goal setting. Okay. If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Benjamin Franklin said that. This is great if you're feeling excited and you're feeling good about your future. But if you don't set a goal and put an action plan together, nothing's going to happen, right? You have to set a goal and take action. That's what this is all about. So let's talk about this. Who wants to accomplish much bigger goals in a fraction of the time? All right, make some noise if that's you. Okay, so how can you do that? Well, it's with my SQUAWK framework, all right, for goal setting. So let's talk about this. First, you want to set a medium-term SMART goal. Now, SMART goal is a very famous goal-setting acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, ambitious, realistic, and time-bound. Okay? So let's talk finances for a second. Well, first, the A is actually achievable, but I replaced it with ambitious because I think it should be an ambitious goal. But it's side note there. So let's take an example. Let's say you have the goal of being less stressed about money. Okay? Well, you want to be less stressed about money. Is that a goal? Yes, it's a goal. Is it a SMART goal? No, it's not. You can turn that into a SMART goal, though, by saying perhaps, I want to pay off $3,000 worth of credit card debt by Christmas. Do you see the difference in those goals? One is kind of vague and you don't really know if you achieved it or not. The other one is it's black and white. You either did it or you didn't. Right? There's a deadline on it. It's very specific. Versus like, I want to be less stressed about money. Well, maybe you just had a donut and you're feeling good about yourself and you ask yourself, do I feel less stressed about money? Yeah, maybe I guess I do. Right? There's no real way to measure it. Next. On the first one, set a medium-term goal. So set something out, maybe 6 months, a year, something like that. Not a 10-year goal. That's way too long, right? So a medium-term goal. So set a medium-term goal. So think about where you want to be 6 months or a year from now. And then you want to chunk it down into smaller goals, all right? Because if you think about that big thing you want to accomplish over the next year, it's going to be overwhelming to you. So what you want to do is you want to break it down into smaller goals. Like, what do I need to do, this week, for instance, or today? What's some small little thing I can do that will keep me on the path forward to that? And when you look at that small little thing you have to do, once you've chunked it down, it becomes much less intimidating. Okay? Weekly goal setting with a focus on what's most important. All right. So there's been different studies done on what's the best way to do goal setting. Should you do goal setting every day, once a week, once a month, once a year? What's the optimal way to do it? And it's been shown that weekly goal setting is the best. Right. That way, let's say you set 3 goals for the week, and Tuesday something came up and you couldn't work on your goals that week. Well, it's not a big deal because you have the whole week to finish your 3 goals. All right, so it gives you some flexibility, but it's also short enough to keep you accountable. So you need to do, basically what you have to do is at the beginning of every week, you need to say, what are the most important things that I have to do this week to get me closer to my goal? You want to focus on the most important things, right? There's a million things you could do. I don't care about those. I care about what is the most important ones. And then what you do is you rank them, right? Here's the number 1 thing, the number 2 thing, the number 3 thing. And you don't move on to 2 and 3 until you got number 1 done, because number 1 is the most important goal. What happens is when we think about taking action, we're like, oh, this is so important. I need to make sure that, I'll do that tomorrow or later because it's so important. And then what happens? It never gets done. So you want to do the most important thing first, okay? So you want to set weekly goals, and then you want to have an accountability partner, okay? This is very, very important, because what's going to happen is you have an accountability partner, and this is someone that you respect, and each week you get together or you have a phone call or an email or whatever, and you say, all right, here are my 3 most important goals for the week, right? You tell your accountability partner that. The next week, you guys meet again, and your accountability partner asks you, did you do those 3 things? I mean, it's powerful, right? And since you respect this person, you would feel bad if you said, oh, well, no, I didn't. You're going to use peer pressure in your favor, right? You're going to, since you know someone's going to be checking in on you, you're actually going to be more likely to do them, and you're going to do those goals, right? So having an accountability partner is key. Lastly, you have to have a kick butt mindset, right? This is what this whole module has been about. Just having the right mindset in order to get these goals done. And if you follow this framework, you can accomplish bigger goals in much less time, right? Especially with the accountability partner piece, you're going to be able to do that. It's a good framework to follow, right? Especially and with the mindset as well. So, awesome. So hopefully you all have set a SMART goal. You know where you're going to be a year from now or whatever time period you picked. And this is very important. I want you to take that goal and I want you to look at it every single day. Maybe you put it on your bathroom mirror or somewhere else that you can see it over and over and over again. And there's going to be a deadline on it, isn't there? You're going to say, I want to accomplish this by a certain date. Now there's no wiggling around, like you either are going to accomplish it by that date or you're not. And that's going to motivate you to actually work on it every single day using that SQUAWK framework. Okay, so here's a good quote that I like. It's all about where you're going no matter where you've been. Okay, so a lot of people think like, oh, because so-and-so happened in the past, or because, well, I haven't been successful in the past, I can't be successful in the future, or whatever other kind of excuses or whatever you want to come up with. It's just not true. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past. It only matters about where you're going in the future. All right? And it's interesting. I actually think that there's a song about this. I'm not quite. Song. All right? It's not about where you've been, it's about where you're going. It's about doing things now, not tomorrow. It's simply great. So, here's your homework. Bet you don't know if you knew you were going to get homework, but you are. All right? It's about taking action. So, here's what you need to do. You need to smash those limiting beliefs, okay? Whenever they come up again, smash them down, keep smashing them down. Monitor your self-talk, okay? Just realize how you talk to yourself. You may be appalled. You may be shocked at how you actually speak to yourself every single day. Stop doing the negative things and start talking to yourself in a positive way. Improve your behavior, okay? Start taking action towards your goals. Start having these millionaire kind of habits. Take an action towards your SMART goal, right? Take at least one, multiple, right? Start taking action towards your SMART goal. It's very, very important. Read the first 5 chapters of Pirates of Financial Freedom. Okay? If you guys didn't know, I wrote a book called Pirates of Financial Freedom. It's the first ever personal finance adventure novel. I'm very much into edutainment, so how do you make boring concepts come alive and make them entertaining? And this book is all about that. So it has action, humor, and romance, but it also teaches 100 money lessons. Okay? So we're going to be reading this book throughout the 8 weeks that we have together, and you're going to like it. It's an award-winning book. It was nominated for a humor award, which for a finance book, I doubt if a finance book has ever been nominated for a humor award. It was a top 5 finalist for a respected national book award. So I think you're going to like it. And so your homework is to read the first 5 chapters. Okay. The PDF was included with this course, so you can, read it from there. If you prefer a hardcover copy, they're available for sale on Amazon and my website, pofbook.com. You're welcome to buy one there. Or you can just read it with the PDF that came with the course. If you have any feedback on this module, right, feel free to send it. Contact@pofbook.com. I always like to hear feedback or success stories or whatever. Feel free to let me know about what your thoughts are. And get excited for next week's lesson, all right? The next one's going to be very good. We're going to get into more of the nuts and the bolts, so get excited for that. And that's pretty much it. But before we end, I want to do this activity one more time, the one that we did at the beginning, right? Remember that one, the scale 1 to 10 thing? Now, you don't have to write this one down. I just want you to shout out the answer. And I think you know the answer that I want on a scale of 1 to 10. I hope you all are going to shout out 10 for every one of these questions, okay? And I want you to do it in a very powerful, confident way. So let's see if we can try this activity again. You can be really rich and still be a good person. Right? Hopefully you guys shouted that out. You can find millionaire mentors. All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is it? You currently have enough time to make extra money on the side. You are smart enough to become really rich. It is possible for you to make $1 million next year. You can overcome any obstacle that gets in your way. All right, really shout it out. Really make me believe it. People like you and trust you and will be happy to buy something from you. You can come from a poor family and still become rich. When it comes to accomplishing your goals, you will never quit. And you can become a billionaire. That's awesome. Now, go out there and dominate.